Okay, thank you. Just one last thing I just want to mention, Madam Chair. We do routine budget checks monthly, and the last one for the snow budget, it's getting kind of tight. We've had a high impact year compared to most years. So just as a heads up, we're keeping an eye on that. I'm working with Robert and the finance folks, and there's a possibility we could go over on the snow budget this year, and we would address that accordingly. It's happened many times before, but not in a while. We haven't had a big winter in a while, so just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
Yes. I know. According to an inch turned into.
That's what I thought.
I know, Alexa told me we're gonna get an inch. My
Yeah.
weather app said 2, and somebody was sending me a message saying we're getting 5. I'm like, I have no idea. All right, thank you. So next up, Ray Freelander, Director, Community and Economic Development, and Mike Wallace, Building Commissioner. Come on down.
Good to see
Go.
So, unfortunately, we don't have screen share capability.
Gonna have to talk us through it. And
Yeah.
we'll,
Madam Chair and the rest of the board, so Ms. Freelander came to me and she kind of spearheaded getting this going. It was to change change a portion of the sign bylaws or sign bylaw to make it easier for businesses to adhere decals and signage to the outside, to the exterior of their windows or glazing down, not just downtown, but it's just, I believe it's too strict. And the materials have changed and advanced since this bylaw was put in place. That's it. I'm just going to pass it.
Yeah, we did have a nice PowerPoint presentation, so we can send that out to you guys so you can see it later. But some of the public feedback that we received to inspire initiating this change, Jose Bonks with JNS initially came to us and shared, he believes this was an old bylaw because businesses used to paint the signs on the exterior window, and now that we have vinyl graphics that are better, they can help businesses because if they're forced to keep putting graphics on the interior part of the window, windows are tinted, so it makes their signs more dull and not as vibrant. And we have provided you guys with 3 letters that we received from businesses here in the downtown area. The first one that we received was from the barbershop here on Main Street, Revival Cuts, where the business owner shared that initially they had installed their decal on the exterior window only to be told by the town to take it down. Not only did that cost them money to put it up and then take it down, but then they lost a couple months worth of business because they couldn't open their business because they didn't have the signage. Something also similarly happened to the second business, Secret Grotto Salon, where they were forced to have to take down signage that they had put on their exterior window. So they're really happy to hear that the town is considering making this amendment because not only would it support them with advertising, but also help them with additional safety, security, and privacy. And then Jose then of JNS Business Products also submitted another letter today just reiterating that the graphics industry has changed for the last 7 to 15 years. The industry standard is to apply signage to the outside of glass. Most of the surrounding towns and cities have already been doing this. So this is more so housekeeping that will help businesses attract customers and with the other mentioned benefits of privacy, security. So your packet does have a memo that shows the proposed changes. We have that for your consideration. So the next step we're asking the select board to consider is to forward these proposed changes to the and if the planning board signs off on it, it'll go before town meeting this spring.
I'd like to speak on some. So, in order to so the bylaw we're requesting is to say that I can approve the materials. I know that seems vague, but there's a whole. You go into the back of the International Building Code, and you'd find common standards like ISO 4578. And that would be on something from Jose saying that was how the adhesive it complies to those standards. And then it would say if it was the flammability rate, the flame spread index, and all that stuff. And can it stand the weather? Can it stand sun damage and stuff and all that? It tells you in the book if it's made of this certain material and this certain reference standards. You can refer back to them, then it's good to go. So that's how you determine. It wouldn't be going, that's a cool sign, let's do it.
Yeah.
There's a whole process to it. And just some homework.
Apparently it works now.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of moving parts going on here tonight. A lot of little squirrels. So I don't think this is a bad idea. I would recommend that, if we hear about new businesses coming in, that we always make sure that they read, understand what the bylaws is, so none of them have to go through anything like that ever again.
Yes.
Yeah, so I feel bad that they had to do that. So, okay.
May I say one more thing?
Yes.
We are gonna, so just so we could trying to squeeze this in for this meeting,
Mhm.
we are gonna, Rachel and I are gonna revisit the sign by law and really dissect it. Not
Mhm.
really, but really fine tooth comb kind of deal. And then, what was I just gonna speak to? As far as the public being aware of it not being on the permit, we were gonna also address that, having everything just right on the building permit for signs. So there is no, like you're saying, so there's no wondering, what did we do? Did we do it right? It's all on. It'll all be on there
Excellent.
later.
Excellent. So, all right. Anybody have any questions?
No.
I have no questions. I think it sounds like a good idea. So,
And we do have the suggested recommendation in the memo.
I think it is I'll make a motion that the suggested zoning bylaw amendment be sent to the planning board for consideration at their March 10th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Too many moving parts. Chair says aye. It's going to the planning board.
You're looking at me, I can't.
There's all people moving around, dinging, and I'm just like, what's going on here?
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Drive safe.
Yeah, drive carefully. So are we back on Zoom?
And APAC is broadcasting on channel 8. Everything is back up. So I'm in the process of posting that back. Just kidding. We're back up.
Okay. Excellent.
Just got word.
All right then. Next up is Next Gen Energy. Keep Lights on Mass Initiative.
You want me to come up here?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. And I see Ricardo is
Yes.
one of my partners and Kimberly is one of my partners.
Yes. Excellent.
So
Woo!
I was ready to present from my phone. I want you to know I was prepared to.
I was going to hand you my tablet to read by, so.
Thank you. That's great.
Oh my goodness gracious.
All right. Well, Carly, you let me know when we're
Yep.
ready to go.
All right.
Great. So I don't see. I mean, Kimberly looks okay. So he's entered the waiting room. And
Oh, yeah, let me
Kimberly-
just.
Oh yeah, she'll get all that. Don't worry.
Beautiful.
You can start.
Awesome.
Go ahead and start.
Okay, well, it is a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm going to try and make this as efficient as possible, given the snow outside and
And the technological difficulties we've had.
exactly, and everybody wanting to cut to the chase. We are really excited to be here. My name is Gina Ash. Ricardo Ortoco is on screen. And Kimberly Johnson is our CEO. She is hopefully going to be on screen in a second. I live in Harvard. I've been in Harvard for 25 to 30 years now, I guess. I'm the president and trustee for the Harvard Conservation Trust. So have done a lot of work kind of in this area, protecting land, very avid environmentalist, and brought an idea to our select board in Harvard a few months ago, which has really started to get traction. And we decided that we wanted to reach out to some of the towns around us and see if you wanted to join in a really exciting effort, this Keep Lights On Massachusetts effort. So I'm thrilled to be here. I've had a chance to meet briefly with Janice a couple times and with Robert. So if it's okay, I'm just going to jump in. Feel free to ask questions, and then we'll kind of get your gut reactions. So we are an energy company, very specialized energy company. We build and operate clean energy infrastructure, and these are first of a kind microgrids, and they're made of carbon-free clean energy power generation for electricity, gets paired with long duration storage, and connected into our emergency operations, into our critical infrastructure in our towns, so that we are resilient. Unplanned outages, not just technology, but that can spread even broader in our communities and can last a long time. We're really looking to start to shore up across the nation. And in particular, where we all are, I'm very passionate about having it happen here in Massachusetts. So we can click to the next slide. I don't want to dive into our backgrounds. I'm happy to send you background on all of us. Kimberly's here, Ricardo's here. Shannon just joined. She's our VP of Public Sector Partnerships. And I can tell you we have decades of experience designing, operating, building, maintaining, regulating clean infrastructure. We've worked at the town, state, federal levels with Department of Energy, Department of Defense, Sandia Labs. With our team, you get us when we would be working with you, our expertise, our attention, and we're really good at navigating the details and the regulation and still being able to keep your town front and center. Next slide. So all of us who live in Massachusetts, we really struggle with the cost of energy here. I was telling Janice and Robert that in Texas, where my partners live, the per kilowatt hour cost for electricity is about 5 cents compared to what we pay here. And I don't even want to, it's like he who shall go unnamed. It's just so expensive. We import a lot of our energy. There's a lot of congestion on our grid. Our grid is aging. We also have very ambitious carbon transition goals. And so there's a lot for us to chew on. And if we could come in and add some real capacity for clean energy to our towns, that would be exciting. I think we could all agree on that. Next slide. So what are we exploring together? We would like the town of Ayer to join the town of Harvard and a few other towns that we have been talking with to evaluate a fully financed, fast to deploy 10 megawatt community microgrid. So each of the towns would have 10 megawatts, which is much bigger than we're using currently. What's exciting about this is we will own our town grids. They're called Hero Hubs. They're intended for us to lower and stabilize our electricity costs, increase resilience in our towns because it's going to be tied to our emergency operations, connected into our critical infrastructure sites, as I mentioned. And because this is larger than we really need in our towns, potentially generate excess electricity that we can then make revenue on for our towns. For Harvard, this is really important. You know, it's all public. We have override last year. We're probably going to have an override this year, and we don't even have the tax base that you all have here, commercial tax base. So finding ways to add clean energy capacity, lower our costs, potentially generate revenue, and achieve our carbon transition goals, very exciting for us. And what's really great is we don't want the town to have to take on financial risk and exposure or technical risk. So let's click to the next one. So I'm going to hand off to Hillary. Let her say hello to all of you. We're so delayed, Hillary, with the weather and with the technical issues that I figured we would just dive right in, but they'll get to know you too as we're talking.
Wonderful. Good evening, afternoon. Kimberly Johnston. Thank you, Gina. So this is Hubs for Energy Resilient Operations. And if you look to the image where it says DER-VPP network, there is, that's distributed energy resources. And these are on-site generation paired with storage, serving critical infrastructure assets. So that's from telecom to hospitals to emergency operations that we're going to connect to, as Gina mentioned, water treatment facilities and other critical facilities that really are there to protect and serve communities, and we want to make sure those lights remain on. But also you have excess capacity that you can generate additional revenue streams for your town. These assets operate independently and then connected through a VPP, a virtual power plant. So if one goes down, the other one can share that excess generation and storage to the other neighboring town. So with each of this consortium, each would have 5, 10 megawatts, and they would all be connected as a virtual power plant operation. In addition, they are connected to the traditional grid, the main grid, where you could use these assets in orchestration and sell back to the New England wholesale market, which is your transmission network system. In addition, they could provide added benefits to the grid distribution system, especially when we're seeking more in-state capacity to deal with those peak demand days. So next slide. This was awarded as a top 10 grid innovation award by the Department of Energy. It was seen as a national replicable model because these hero hubs lower electricity costs. They mitigate hazard risks such as cyber threats or power outages impacts, which are rising. They serve as assets for ancillary services, demand load management, increased capacity for the state that tends to import quite a bit of energy at higher costs. And this award, because of these 300 shovel-ready projects are still shovel-ready, so we've been charged by DOE to go ahead and move to a replicable model that's not reliant on federal funding, and that's what we're launching here with Massachusetts is the Keep Lights On initiative. But this was a 250 million grant matched by the private sector, and now we're moving into a commercially viable model, which Ricardo will speak to later. Next slide. So the benefits, this is unique because it's localized energy that is truly there to serve your community needs. Not only meet the energy needs of your town, but also create additional capacity that are there to serve as assets for the town as well as the community. So you will add local electricity capacity very quickly. You'll overbuild to deal with the demand growth and provide benefits to the state as well as the regional wholesale market. You'll reduce electricity costs. When I installed my microgrid on my home, I pay less than $4 a month in electricity, and I've avoided 70 power outages. So the payback could be anywhere from 3 to 4 years, depending on the profile here, which we've already kind of modeled high level, which Ricardo will get to. You'll optimize large municipality electric loads across your town offices, fire, police, and then you'll build resilience and keep the community's critical facilities powered. And as we know, if you lose power, definitely there's cascading effects where you lose water, telecom, gas. So we want to make sure that those cascading effects don't occur. And then obviously we will reduce the GHG emissions to meet your carbon reduction goals, and then really supplement the main grid and boost it from a modernization and optimization perspective. Next slide. And then we offer a consortium approach, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to present to you all tonight. We are looking to have a consortium because part of the challenge in accelerating distributed energy resources that are localized energy paired with emerging storage technologies is because the financial barriers. And so this consortium approach provides the scale where ultimately the town will own these assets, and they will not only benefit from the freeing up cash flow from the lower electricity costs, but also now translate in these assets into generating new revenue streams for the city. Because we're looking at a consortium, we can also get economies of scale from procurement and make sure we're focusing on the domestic manufacturers across the equipment that we roll out. We secure long-term cash flow, and then we deliver lower energy electricity costs. And then this really paves the way for a statewide distributed energy virtual power plant market in Massachusetts. So next slide. So definitely pass it over to Ricardo to dive in on the financial aspects.
Yeah, that's the fun part. So, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you for the time. We wanted to actually overcome what we believe is the biggest obstacle for public institutions like yourselves to actually own their own generation assets. And we established, in order to address that, the Keep Lights On Fund. The fund puts together both private equity players as well as public funding, and which allows basically the consortiums of municipalities to eventually own the infrastructures and take advantage again of all the benefits that Kimberly described that have to do with both the reduction in the cost of energy as well as resilience for their energy needs, especially focusing on what are the ones that are critical, being the critical infrastructures. The next slide. There's a lot of words here, but if you bear with me and you focus on the schematic on the right, this is the way that at a high level that the Keep Lights On Fund or KLO Fund actually works. And so Next Gen Energy will act as the general partner for the fund, potentially inviting state entities to actually sponsor the fund itself. The limited partners, so the partnership will include basically the tax equity investors or private equity as well as infrastructure investors, as well as the consortium of the municipalities. The idea is actually to have a split between 45%, so 40 to 50%, I would say, equity as well, and a similar amount of debt. The debt will be raised both at the partnership level as well as the project level. The way that the fund makes money is actually via a couple of revenue streams. One that is described here, which is the PPA, which is a power purchase agreement. And so the critical infrastructure sites, as well as the municipalities for their own load, will actually strike a contract with the fund, for which the fund will actually provide the electricity at a very reduced price. And so this is a mechanism by which actually the city will have the opportunity to both reduce their own electrical bill as well as generate revenue for the excess capacity that Kimberly described. So we're assuming that the 10 megawatt will more than cover what is the current load of the city itself, so for the city-owned facilities, and that extra load and the extra capacity can be actually either sold on the market via several revenue streams that are additive to the PPA that you will see here. I will skip the next slide, so if you can kindly move to slide 13. We talked about ownership, and so we just wanted to make sure that we can that we really explain how this happens. And so in the typical tax equity flip, which is the financial structure that we're putting in place, the investor will take 98% of the cash flow. Those cash flows will include the investment tax credits, which the municipalities cannot directly leverage, if you will, the depreciation that gets generated by the assets, as well as, again, the majority of the operating cash flow that gets generated by the partnership. The municipality will take 2% of those cash flows for the first 5 years. After circa 5 years, the partnership flips. And so the investors will go down to 2% of the cash flow, while the municipality will take the majority of the cash flow through from year 5 through the end of life of the asset, which we assume are about 20 years. So there's, with the small exceptions that we'll touch in a couple of slides, of a feasibility study that we propose to be executed in order to really understand how the facilities will be built in each one of the towns. So with that, the small exceptions, there is virtually no cash outflows from the city, which will end up owning the facilities after 5 years. We've done some very high-level modeling at this point, which will need to be incremented by the feasibility study and really understanding where the facilities will be put and how much capacity can we really put on the ground. But from the modeling that we've done so far, each city could generate $1.5 million from year 6 through 20, with a cumulative revenue pool of over $25 million over the lifetime of the assets. So I think we believe that this is an incredible value proposition, both from the technical and operating side, as well as from the financial side for the cities. NextGen Energy will earn a management fee for putting together the deal, both from the financial standpoint as well as from the commercial standpoint, as well as for overseeing the development of the assets, and then while they're in operation, overseeing basically the maintenance and the operation of the assets themselves by a series of partners, both on the EPC side as well as on the operating side that will actually work with us.
Next slide.
Next slide.
And then why don't you flip one more? Okay, so why don't I recap quickly, because I know there's a lot of technical jargon coming at us all late in the day. The idea here is bring 5 towns together. Why do we do that? Because then we get economies of scale, and we actually get the investors that are willing to invest in something that's bigger. It's very hard for us to go off and get investors to help us finance a bunch of small 10 megawatt microgrids across all of our towns. But we put them all together, and it behaves like one large plant, even though it's distributed and sitting in all of our towns. My background is software technology, right? We wire them all together so they behave like one big plant. And so we can get this financed with very little upfront capital from our towns. We are actually now applying for grants, and we're hoping to get some grant money or other support to cover a feasibility and scoping study so that we could figure out where would we put this in Ayer versus Harvard versus Bolton versus Berlin. Where would we put the storage? Is it going to be next to the fire station, next to a water treatment or a wastewater treatment facility? And get all of that laid out, and then the investors can invest in it. For the first 5 years, we're the customers, right? And we are paying our normal electricity bills every month. We get those investors paid off. Around year 5, it flips, and then we become the owners, and then we're paying ourselves after that. And all the excess energy that we have, we can sell into the marketplace, so we can create some real revenue streams. $1.5 million a year, it looks like, minimum, to our towns. So it's pretty clean. It's very novel. We built it in partnership with the Department of Energy, the town of Harvard. So what we're really asking is that the towns will enter into a feasibility study, and you'll see this in the deck that we sent over. But it's all the things you need to look at. You know, where could we potentially site this? How would we structure it? Where would a solar array go? Is it on roofs? Is it freestanding? Do we put the batteries next to the buildings, or do we put it next to the solar panels? How do they all talk to each other? How is it going to be managed? And then we bring that back to you. This feasibility study is going to cost $375,000 for all 5 towns. So it's $75K per town. Not a lot when we're talking about a $130 million facility that we're bringing to our towns. That said, it's budgeting cycle. It's hard for us all to find money. So we're trying to help find some capital for that. We may not. So if you flip to the next 2 slides up, Carly, one more, thanks. What we're asking is that the town of Ayer express an interest in participating in this consortium with our other towns and sign an MOU, which I think I provided to you, Robert. It is legally non-binding, but what it does is it gives us this expression of interest that we can take to our engineering firms, we can take to the investors and say, we've got 5 towns, we are ready to go. And then we'll work through the feasibility, and then there's nothing binding about that until you actually sign a scoping assessment, and the town can decide whether or not we have $75K to put up for this, or if you want to apply for grants or have us help you apply for grants, we are really willing to do that. So let me stop here and let folks answer questions. That's pretty much an hour presentation that we did in about 15 minutes, so I apologize for the fire hose coming at you. Questions?
Phew. So I see all over you have clean power. It says power. What is it? What is this clean power?
The clean power solar arrays. So it's
Okay,
solar
so
panels.
so it's
In
solar.
this area here, it's different in different parts of the country, right? But here in Massachusetts, solar is the easiest to put up. It's the cleanest. Kimberly and Ricardo, am I missing anything here?
No,
Nope.
you're right.
So what kind of footprint would this be for 10 megawatts of solar? I mean, how many acres or
Yeah.
square feet?
So I know in Harvard we were looking at putting 3 megawatts on 7 acres when we started. So you figure it would probably be about 20 acres. It can be in one place. It can be split up among other locations as well. And the storage systems, our battery storage systems, can be, and this is kind of what the scoping assessment will help us determine, is it strongest for the town from an operations and a resilience perspective to have the battery storage connected to the school, connected to a water treatment facility, the Wi-Fi, the police stations. Where's that critical infrastructure most vulnerable? Do we also have batteries located at our solar arrays so that there's physical proximity there? These are the things that we would work through as part of the scoping assessment and optimize for the town goals and for emergency operations and just general production.
20 acres is sizable. I mean, I know you can split it up and go from, different areas, but I know building our senior center, going through all of that, there's not a lot of
Yep.
acreage here in town.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but that,
So on the Hero, real quick, on the Department of Energy grant where we had 385 microgrids, they all varied in size from, they were on fire stations or existing water treatment facilities, schools, as well as acreage. So they all varied in size. Now, we could look to get one 10 megawatt, or we could have, two or more hero hubs within your town, and that's part of the feasibility assessment, is to really look at what you all view as available acreage that would be good size, as well as critical infrastructure facilities, and then there would be a kind of data-driven down selection, looking at grid congestion, energy costs, hazard risks, and that would ultimately get you to what would be optimal, these 10 megawatts to serve your needs.
I think when Janice, remind me if I'm remembering this correctly, I think when we were speaking with Harvard Select Board, they suggested that if there wasn't sufficient land, Chris, here in town, that maybe in Harvard, say right on the border here, there might be some, and maybe we could co-locate our grids together, and they would be serving both towns, and maybe the grid is sitting sort of on both sides of the town borders. So that's something we could look at too as part of the scoping assessment.
We did say
Yeah.
that if we had,
Yeah.
any land is touching one another.
Yeah, and that might let us be a little bit more creative about how we actually design and build these.
And the batteries, the storage, what are they? Are they lithium ion? Are they, what's the type of storage we're talking about?
So on the storage, the DOE just released its recent list of all the storage technologies. We clearly would look to the storage technologies that are that are proven technologies. This isn't an R&D project. This is really storage. But the storage, and I'm just pulling up the list here. Right now we're thinking lithium, but there's iron-based storage, there's thermal, there's chemical. And we serve on the National Consortium of Long Duration Energy Storage Technologies, and we certainly want to pull in one of the labs to work with us during the feasibility and assessment phase. But we really want to look at all storage technologies and prioritize those that certainly bring the most resilience factor, they have the lowest cost, and then they're domestically manufactured so we can maximize the credits. I think someone was raising their hand and took
Yep,
their
we'll
hand
get to
off.
it. Yep.
Oh, I just want to make sure. Okay. Yep.
So if we don't know like the exact type of battery, we don't have storage capacity numbers then, right? Amp hours, kilowatt hours for drawdown. Do we have anything as far as
That's
that
going to
goes?
be all part of the engineering design,
Okay.
given where we are here in Massachusetts, how much sunlight. I mean, it gets very complex when they're calculating how much sunlight we have during the day and powering the batteries through our sunlight versus powering the batteries through the grid. And then they're also weighing, well, when is it really expensive? When are the peak demand times where we would want to not be pulling anything from the grid, but pulling from our battery, for example? And when are the times and we would want to be selling at that point into the grid, and then we would be charging our batteries when it's either really sunny out or when we could be pulling it at a really cheap time. And so these are all the things that get calculated during this feasibility study by the engineering firm that we have selected to do this for these towns. I'm hitting the high points here, Kimberly, but have I sort of covered it generally? Great.
And at the end of life, so
Okay.
you say after 5 years, it flips back to the town. Now, does the town own it at 5 years?
So Ricardo, I'll let you tackle that.
Yes, so the town owns 98%. 2% will need to be bought back, if you will, from the equity investor. But for all intent and purposes, I mean that will be a nominal fee. So yes, from year 6 through year 20, which is the normal lifetime for this type of facilities, unless sustaining maintenance and capital can be poured into it. But let's call it 20 years. Yes, the city will actually own their own facilities.
So decommissioning would then be on the town at 20 years? Or is there a separate decommissioning fund like a nuke plant would have?
Mm-hmm. So what he's asking, Ricardo, is how is maintenance, monitoring, and decommissioning handled?
There's we have a partner who actually manages the operations of the batteries, as well as the solar facilities, and so they will manage through the operations as well as the decommissioning of the batteries as their life expires.
So Chris, it gets built into the whole financing package, and it sort of comes as a turnkey operation. So even though the town owns it, you're not expected to actually have to be managing and maintaining and decommissioning it, those services are provided sort of as part of the Keep Lights On fund.
So is it like an escrow fund, something that, if someone goes out of business or tax credits change or something like that, it's not at year 20 and we have to decommission this whole big solar array. Now it falls on the town?
No.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the towns are limited partners into the fund, and so it's the fund that has the responsibility to manage the batteries. The investment tax credits will expire in the first 5 years, and so you don't have to worry about that. And a lot of the investors will ask for those to be insured. We're partnering with an insurance company that actually insures the tax credits, so there's absolutely no risk on that side. I think that the decommissioning of the batteries will be built into the fund, and the fund will also have accountability and legal responsibility for managing in case there's a fire or something needs to be addressed. So it doesn't fall directly on the towns.
And as far as just the lower rates that you say, the town can have lower rates, what's that based off of? Is that data modeling, or is that just kind of a guess? I like to see numbers, and I understand listening to all your answers, you don't have numbers right now, but when you say lower prices, how do you say that? Like what's that based on?
Well, it's based from the modeling that we have done so far, and we are looking at something in the neighborhood of low teens in terms of the levelized cost of electricity. Again, it would also depend on a series of the operational and technical decisions that will need to be made after the feasibility study will be in place. So, for example, it depends on how much storage you will put front of the meter versus behind the meter. They have different revenue streams, and so depending how you want to manage those revenue streams, then depending on how you want to structure basically the storage, then the revenue streams may be different, and therefore that final price for electricity may be different. If you reserve more capacity for emergency operations, then the price of electricity will go slightly up, because we need to separate, if you will, technically a portion of the storage to actually reserve that capacity for emergency operations, and therefore that portion of the storage cannot generate revenue. So it will depend. We will make those decisions together, both from the engineering standpoint and then understanding what the implication on the financial side, and then you will decide how you want to manage some of those decisions, and that will impact the cost of electricity. But again, we've done calculations on the basis of the capacity factors that the solar has in Massachusetts, which is much lower than other states, and so we have to take into consideration that and the cost that we assume as the cost for the BESS, so the storage, based on the cost that some of our partners and suppliers have in place with us.
So at the moment, we have the publicly available information we've been able to pull on costs and demand and things like that, and other projects that we've done, partners that we work with, and through the feasibility and scoping study, then we start to refine that with actual numbers that we work on with you.
And just to simplify it, you're paying for electricity now, and likely that electricity is coming through the transmission lines, which is a surcharge, or you're paying. We haven't seen your utility bills, but for the hero hubs that we modeled with Department of Energy, generally you're looking at a lower electricity cost of what you're paying now for those large scale generation plants owned by your utility versus something that is on site that is carbon free. So there's paired with the storage. So that's the simple just change in the electricity cost through your power purchase agreement. And then as Ricardo was sharing, because you have storage, you can actually generate quite a various revenue streams depending on the engineering configuration and what you ultimately are wanting to build on those critical infrastructure sites.
Any other towns in the area that you've presented to yet?
Yes, several. So we believe Harvard is signing the MOU already. We have presented to Bolton and are hoping to move forward to formal select board meeting as well. We were just introduced to Shirley. Thank you, Janice, today, and a meeting with their team on Monday, and also Berlin. So we really, at this point, we're really focusing on a cluster of towns that we're all together. We have shared services and shared communities in so many levels already. It really made sense for us. We all use National Grid for our distribution. We have a lot of shared protected lands, so it made sense for us to sort of start with kind of in the family, if I can use that loosely here. But we've had really great traction already, Sean, and kind of excited about the momentum that's building pretty quickly. That said, we're just beginning this conversation with you, and I think really welcome the opportunity to keep talking, answer questions. You know, we'll dig as deep as you want to go.
And then, has there, you mentioned models, have there been projects completed in, in New England? Or
Sure, not in New England. So this is coming to New England. So, and we are bringing it to Massachusetts because I've lived here for 25 years and I'm tired of paying the electricity costs that I pay when I'm in other parts of the country. This started in partnership with DOE, and they started Hero Hubs around the Gulf Coast region, which has been hit so hard between hurricanes and unexpected snowstorms and a really antiquated grid. So, you know, it's been a very critical situation from an operations perspective in that part of the country. We're getting hit really hard on costs where we are because we don't have the resources that they have there. We don't have the heat, the sunlight, the wind. So for us, it's been really challenging. So it's a different reason that we really need it here, but I think just as important to all of us.
Pauline?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry to have my hand up for this duration. I appreciate that we've been down, or you all have been down for a while. Couple of things. First, from an admin or procedural thing, the screen seems to be locked on the last speaker. I don't know her name, I'm sorry, but glasses with long dark hair. It does not revert back to the current speaker who is addressing the board, I'm sure. So something is still not going well with the orchestration of the meeting. That's
Well,
fine.
as long as you can hear us. And it's
I can
being
hear you.
recorded. That's the important part.
Agreed, but I have no idea who's speaking.
Okay.
We can identify ourselves.
I'm not totally sure what y'all are discussing, but we just went to municipal aggregation for our electric bills. This is something different.
Yes. So this would be
And-
creating something.
Well, I get that, but is this the only company you're looking at for creating this quote-unquote something?
This is the first one we've talked to, because this is the first time we've ever heard of anything like this.
And I get that, because this is new to me as well. I hope y'all will at least explore other alternatives. I'm not saying this company is not telling us everything that is accurate, but it just sounds too good to be true. And I'm an all-electric house, so I look at this stuff very, very closely. And I just hope y'all don't make a decision tonight. I don't know where this is going, and I have missed most of the meeting, but just please take a breath, step back, and look at other opportunities?
So just so you know that this part is going to be on the video. Okay, so and in the packet there's also the MOU that had been created with Harvard, and in that MOU is a lot of off ramps, and it's basically that if this board chooses to look into this, which in order to look into this we would kind of need to move to the next step, then the feasibility study comes back, we could look at it and then go, this isn't for us. So, you know, there's nothing locking us in, except for perhaps if this board chooses to do so, go into a feasibility study. Right now, as presented, we've been asked to at least express an interest as to whether or not. Does not have to be made tonight. I'm not asking this board to rush into a decision. We can bring this back on March 17th, so that, you know, I've had this conversation with Gina, and Robert and I have had this conversation, so I'm a little bit more up on it than my counterparts here. So I have no problem, and it's perfectly acceptable to just listen tonight and look into it a little bit more and come back on the 17th. Now, if you excuse me, did you still want to have a question?
Yes, thank you so much.
May I add one thought to
Hold
that?
on. I have someone asking a question.
I'm okay if she'd like to.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Please state your name.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. My name is Rachel Kozera. I live at 30 Groton Harvard Road.
Okay.
I was wondering the limitations for business usage with regard to this type of power usage. With the rise of like AI and different things like that, I just would want to make sure that this wouldn't be used for, I guess, something like that. I didn't know if there were any limitations that would be presented with regard to the usage of the power that would be harvested.
Well, Gina, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that initially the thought was to make sure all our municipal buildings were covered under this, so that, you know, emergency services, and then as we produce more power, we can then branch out to maybe sell it even to like your residents, something like that.
Okay,
Would
so
that be correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
good. I'm glad.
Totally, the town is.
Glad to
in
know I was
control.
paying attention. Okay.
The town is in control of that, yes.
wonderful. And then let's see. Have there been any studies with regard to health issues associated with the types of batteries that you use in these solar panels? It seems like there's not a type of battery that's been discussed as a finite solution. So I just didn't know if there were, you know, you're putting them in sensitive areas of the town. We're finding nooks and crannies, emergency buildings, schools. So the health of the town, I think, is really important when it comes to things like this.
Would that be addressed?
Would you like to address that now, Kimberly?
Yes, so, we're partnering with Schneider Electric and American Microgrid Solutions, and we are technology agnostic. However, we want to make sure that the technologies chosen certainly are public safe, without a doubt, and partnering with Sandia National Labs, they focus on the energy storage technologies, and they perform the environmental and safety testing as part of the prior to deployment. And part of the feasibility and assessment would be working with our partners that are very Class A with the national labs to make sure that those matters are addressed.
So there's been no studies with regard to ill health issues that you could discuss or
There
not
has been
discuss?
studies. So I have a lithium battery in my house, and I came from CenterPoint Energy, and we worked with IKEA, we worked with grocery stores that have installed these storage systems, and there was health studies performed and ongoing, and there has not been any reported consequences.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think the important,
But we have a list, DOE just issued a list of probably 25 different types of technologies that are in the market today. And we really want to be just independent experts that are trying to serve you and your community as best possible to make sure that when you are looking at deploying energy security solutions, that they certainly are, um, have a public safety lens for sure. Yep.
Wonderful. And I know with certain batteries, there's a possibility of exploding. Have you encountered challenges in other locations that this, this is? I just know, I think recently I saw a story with a woman who just had, it was like a little tiny battery next to her, obviously, but these are larger. So does that happen? Are there additional studies with regard to that?
There's certainly there has been hazards, even transformers blow up. So there's always going to be some sort of equipment risk, but there's equipment testing that we'll do with these technologies through the feasibility and scoping assessment. One of our partners has already deployed solar and storage technologies on school systems there in Massachusetts. And but with the ones that we're looking at, they have those studies do exist, and we can certainly share those with you.
Okay.
And so, in addition to that, also as far as the storage, so the batteries themselves, they will be contained. They're generally contained into larger steel casing, and so in case that there is a fire or malfunction or something, that will be contained by casing. So it's different from a car battery, for example, which is directly underneath the car. These are built in a way that is much safer.
So in a feasibility study, would some of these questions be
this is
answered?
exactly what the feasibility
Okay,
study is for. And I don't want to focus on the slide deck, but there is a slide which lists all the things that would be covered in the feasibility and
Okay.
scoping assessment, and these are exactly the things that
Okay,
would get
good.
addressed. Yes.
Yep.
I was just wondering who the equity investors are, and when the panels are sold back to the town and they have 2%, do they have rights here? Are there limitations on that as well?
So these are generally, tax equity investors are generally banks, depending on the size of the investment. Either large banks, that are large commercial banks that you know, or more regional banks, as well as funds that are specialized on this kind of investments. We're also looking for investment from green banks, and so these are public and private institutions that actually provide funding for green type of energy, right? And so this would fall, distributed energy, solar, as well as batteries, falls directly into the purview of those kind of institutions. Most of the tax equity flips, to be honest, after the 5-year, when the flip occurs, the investor intends to get bought out, and so there is a strong incentive on their part to actually sell and get out of the partnership, so that the assets will be solely owned by the fund, and the only partner of the fund at that point will be the consortium of the towns.
Okay. Do they have like land rights then?
No.
No?
They
Okay.
do not.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
questions.
coming in and the weather. Oh my goodness.
I know, thank you. Yes, Janet?
So, Madam Chair, it's Pauline. I'm still out here
I'm sorry.
with a couple of other questions, and that's fine. You moved on to Rachel, and I've liked her questions. One of the ones I have is, who pays for the feasibility study?
That
And
would
what
be
does
the
it
town.
cost?
That would be the town, and it would be $75,000 because it's $350,000 for the 5 towns, so it would be divided by 5.
Okay, thank you for that. Does any of this require town meeting approval?
If after a feasibility study, if we wanted to go ahead. Because then we
Alright.
would have the information to then say, hey, this is what we're looking into. Just like anything, we would need to look at something before we have the stuff to be able to take to town meeting. So this would be just like something similar that we've done in the past, not on this type of subject.
Sure, I understand. If I can just share my initial views with my background, I am genuinely concerned about who protects the town in such an agreement. If the electricity service or whatever this is, and I apologize for not being up to date on it. We all lost our access earlier tonight, so I didn't catch it all. But if the town is being indemnified by the carrier that is presenting this proposal, if they go under, and I don't mean to suggest they will, but snowplows coming up Adams Street for the first time. We have seen solar and other energy companies dissolve due to a number of issues. What happens if that happens? What happens to the town of Ayer if that happens?
Same thing that'll happen to the other 4 towns that sign on with us. We would all go down together.
Well, you know what?
All jokes aside, that's what it would be.
I wanted the answer. That's not the answer I wanted.
Well, no one wants to think about, everything going boom.
Right.
But I mean, that's reality. If that scenario that you brought forward happened and it affected the consortium, then this consortium would all be together in this issue.
Ricardo, would you like to?
I appreciate that, Janice, and that's, I think, what the 4 or 5 towns need to keep in mind before anybody signs anything, because that could be devastating to all of our towns.
Well, that's why the first step would be to get a feasibility study, because we could come back with our we could do a feasibility study, and it could come back and it just won't work for the town of Ayer due to whatever reason.
And
but
who will do that
it'll
study?
work with. Well, they would do the study.
Well, we actually would retain American Microgrid Systems, which is an arm of Snyder Electric here in Massachusetts that builds all of these systems. So think of Next Gen Energy as the experts that are pulling everything together. All of the financing, engineering, design, procurement, siting, building the consortiums with the town. We are technology agnostic. We are agnostic to meaning we're not going to push a specific solution on any one of the 5 towns that are part of the consortium. It's up to the engineering firms to tell us what's going to work best in each one of our towns. And Pauline, I'm a resident of Harvard for 25 years, and I am literally right across the town line here. So I spend half my time in Ayer anyway, because we have nothing in Harvard. So we all live in Ayer most of the time.
We've noticed, and we're going to start
sure you
putting
have,
a
and
toll.
you should. But,
so let me conclude my comments so that y'all can move on, because it's been a long night. My background is litigation, civil litigation, not criminal, basically insurance litigation, and an independent review with a consortium does not always rely on the on the proponent's reviewer. The town of Ayer should have its own reviewer, independent of Next Gen? I don't even know who I'm speaking with, so I apologize.
You're speaking to Gina Ash of Next Gen Energy.
Next Gen. All right. Next Gen is proposing an independent reviewer. Fine. You're paying them, so with all due respect, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. I think the town of Ayer needs to hire its own independent reviewer to compare Next Gen with your competitors. That's just my view as a taxpayer, and I leave it out there. But before we jump into anything, because we jump into things so often, we really need to look into this a little more carefully. And I guess I'll lower my hand and eat the dinner I cooked while you all were trying to get back to the meeting.
Pauline, maybe.
Okay, thank you. So Janice.
Thank you, Janice.
Yep, thanks. Janet?
Okay, Ricardo was going to say
Ricardo?
something.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, part of the review of the package that we'll put in front of the cities is also the economics. And the economics will come from revenues that are contracts that will be inked by the time the construction of the facilities will happen. And so both the investors as well as the towns will want to make sure that, the electricity is contracted. These are 20-year contracts that will need to be put in place. And so there is virtually zero risk from the economic standpoint once the contracts are in place, because these are take or pay contracts, meaning that somebody would actually sign up to actually purchase this much electricity or this much capacity for 20 years at this price. This is what gets financed by the banks. So once we have that clearly inked, and we have the cost of the equipment clearly inked, there's really relatively low risk. Nobody needs to necessarily go down. NextGen Energy at that point plays just a advisory role, if you will, to the fund. The fund is actually its own almost MLP, so municipal light plant, which you guys will put in place without any money down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janet Pravidakis, 1 Relania Court here in Ayer. Just one quick question so what happens after 20 years? I mean, you're saying that this is a contract for 20 years. In 20 years, which hopefully I'm still around because I want to live to 101. What happens in 20 years? Does it get renewed? Do you take the batteries out, replace the batteries, or is it just defunct? That was my question.
Good question.
What happens in 20 years?
No.
This happens all the time in every situation, even when you're buying your energy from National Grid. These are typically 20-year contracts, 20-year facilities. I would imagine, and Ricardo, please jump in here, I would imagine a few years before the facility would be retiring, the town will then decide how they want to move forward. 20 years from now, we're going to have incredible advancements in energy production. Who knows? Maybe even over on Devon's, Commonwealth Fusion actually has cracked fusion energy, and we're powering our whole town with something this big. So, that's 20 years from now. I know. Well, we will see. But I should let. I'm adding color here, but Ricardo and Kimberly would give you a real expert answer.
Yes, no, I think you nailed it, Gina. So the technology will change. A few years before, the towns will need to, as a consortium, will need to decide, and we will support them to decide whether they want to actually continue the operation of the facilities, if it's possible, if the solar panels can be restored to their initial performance, as well as the batteries, or they will need to be substituted. New capital will need to be brought in, and the town will decide how they want to finance that, and we'll be there to support that, the financing as well. But at that point, the facilities will be completely depreciated from the economic and financial standpoint, and there will be the decommission and will be paid. So. There's limited financial risk, but if you want to continue to operate the facilities, then they will need to get refurbished, if you will.
And the town will have generated considerable revenue by that point. So our preliminary modeling shows $1.5 million in excess revenue generation to the town for years 5, 6 through 20. So a portion of those revenues can actually go to thinking about and planning for what the town wants to do with energy by the time the facility sort of reaches its maturity.
Okay.
I got a question. Thank you,
Thank
Janet. If we were to decide to move forward with this idea, when would the feasibility study start? When you've signed on the other towns?
I'm gonna let Ricardo address this as well. So are we waiting for all 5 towns to sign the MOUs? Are we thinking about potentially sequencing these?
I think that it's important for us for the reasons that Kimberly described before, it's important for us to actually reach a certain size because that will allow us to find the right financing partners, lower the cost of the financing, as well as lowering the supply chain cost. Having said that, we're discussing with our partners, so AMS and Schneider, the possibility of actually starting the feasibility studies one by one, which is the way that will normally produce these studies. So clustering, declustering, if you will, the cluster and really analyzing each one of the entities alone, because you all have different decisions to make at the end of the feasibility study. You have different topography and opportunity to actually site both the solar as well as the batteries. And so I think that there is a possibility to actually sequence those independent of all the MOU being physically inked. We just received notice that Harvard, at least this is my understanding, that Harvard has signed the MOU as of unanimously approved the signing of the MOU tonight. So they're a little bit further down the path. So, but this is, I think, great news.
Yes, and I would add the MOU is non-binding. It is an initiative to explore energy assets that the towns can own, reduce their electricity costs, mitigate power outages, and generate additional revenue streams. National Grid has already launched a virtual power plant, and these just started rolling out a couple years ago. I worked on the first one in Texas with Tesla and the city of Houston, and we rolled out microgrids that are operating and making sure that lights are on in the medical center. And in fact, this last Texas freeze, Fern had not as many power outages, significantly less than the Texas freeze of 2021, because these assets were online. And they're selling back to the grid companies to avoid peak demand, as well as selling these excess capacity within the network system. So National Grid has already adopted a virtual power plant. We have an opportunity with solar and storage where Schneider Electric and AMS, our partner, they are trying to see if we could seize the maximum tax incentives at the federal level for both the solar and storage piece too. That could be sizable additional savings and cash flow generation for the towns. But I want to emphasize, this is a non-binding MOU, and we truly are just independent experts trying to bring something very novel that's very viable to Massachusetts that the DOE has endorsed under both administrations.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank
Do
you for
either of
having
you
us.
have any more questions?
Question was just a request, or
Huh?
I was just gonna request. There's no more questions. Yeah.
No.
Just if we could just have town council review the MOU and
Yep.
bring it back on department heads, and then bring it back on the 17th.
Yep.
That's a little bit of time. So,
I fully agree.
Okay, not a problem. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
This has
having
been very
us.
interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Next up, Robert.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. I know we're running behind, so in the interest of time, I'll get right to the action items. I do have the warrants.
We're gonna start
Yes. So unless there are any administrative questions from the board, I'll move right into the action items. The warrants that were approved since the board last met are in the packet. So I'll go right into what has been the focus, which is the budget. And I have a brief presentation. The good news is I'm not going to go through all of the slides. I will send the presentation to the board and get it up on the website. But just wanted to give a brief update on where we are with the omnibus budget and just a brief update on the capital plan. So next slide. Yep. So here's where we are right now, March 3rd. The highlighted pieces to point out, so the union contract obligations, we have concluded the clerical negotiations. I know the board will be discussing in executive session that MOA. So those costs are being put into the budget. Under the non-union obligations, there are the contracts, the personnel contracts have been concluded, which the board will be reviewing tonight in executive session. The non-union COLA recommendation of 2%, the recommendation, which was approved by the select board on February 17th, is still subject to town meeting approval through the budget, but we are putting those costs into the budget. Fixed costs remain stable throughout this. So the real final piece we're still waiting on is the Ayer Shirley Regional School Assessment, which, based on what they presented on February 3rd, was at over 1.8 million or 11.9%. I know that the superintendent and the school committee, as well as Shirley, and I have had conversations in meetings as well. Our finance committee has asked Dr. Renda to come back on March 19th for an update. We know that this number is going to change, but it's a significant number of the overall budget, so we need to nail that down. And as the board knows, they have till March 17th to certify that number. Then the Neshoba school assessment, actually from February 5th, there was no change. That number is the same. So that's where the budget drivers are right now at about 2.7. Next slide. So in terms of, again, you've seen this slide before, the highlight again, the clerical contracts cost that's been concluded, the personnel concluded, the non-union COLA has been recommended, subject to town meeting. In the interest of time, though we're at 5.9%, the draft 2, which I'll talk about in just a second, we anticipate for the omnibus will actually come in around 4%, in the 4%, which is below the 5% target. That's without schools. So next slide. So again, you've seen this slide before. I haven't changed anything. We're just really waiting on the schools. Next slide. So in terms of the capital plan, which is on the capital webpage, and I'm not going to get into all of the specifics, but wanted to just give a brief financial overview. As the board is aware, the capital planning committee, which is appointed by the select board, meets generally from November to February to review the town's capital plan, 5-year plan, as well as to review all of the capital requests that are submitted by departments, and they vote and make recommendations to the select board for inclusion of these items in the articles. This year, the big 3 goals, the main goals for capital, were that the general fund capital not exceed $1 million. That's based on the whole perfect storm and the need to tighten things up. Develop enterprise fund capital to minimize rate increases. And on March 17th, the board will get into great detail with water, sewer, and stormwater with the rate hearing. And then develop a capital plan that still maintains and advances the town's capital in an affordable and responsible manner. I'm pleased to report that as of February 5th, those goals were met by the committee. On February 5th, there are no debt exclusions as part of this FY27 capital plan. There was a project submitted, the Beach House project for Sandy Pond, which is not ready at this time to move forward. That would have been a debt exclusion, more work to be done on that front. Next slide. So when I say that the goals have been met, the general fund capital, so this is that hits the general fund, $646,161. Target was $1 million. There's $100,000 I highlighted for the annual road paving that the finance manager was able to identify completed projects that had outstanding balances that can transfer that amount to cover that project. That'll be subject, there'll be an article on that for town meeting. So the general fund is in good shape. The enterprise fund, this is the various items total under each enterprise fund, which is paid for by the ratepayers. So the ambulance, the 578 is to replace one of the ambulances. In water, there's $650,000 for water security improvements and the annual water main replacement. And there was $425,000 to replace the PFAS media at both Spectacle and Grove Pond. Why I highlighted this, as the board is aware, the town is in a settlement consortium, a PFAS litigation that we have received to date over $1 million in settlement funds. The thing is that the funds have to be used for PFAS related purposes. So the DPW director and the finance manager recommended to Capital, and Capital did agree to use $425,000 of those funds to cover that PFAS media. So that $425,000, rather than hitting the rates in the water enterprise, will be paid directly from that settlement fund. Again, that will be an article subject to town meeting. Sewer at $760,000, solid waste $80,000. This is to replace the solid waste pickup truck, which is dead. Well, not dead yet, but it's not gonna. It needs to be replaced. And then the stormwater for $230,000 out of the stormwater enterprise, which was just created and funded by town meeting, and there are no rate increases for stormwater. Next. And then just real quick, so you can see, in FY27 we're at $646,000. Last year was $1.6 million. The committee, we were able to reduce the general fund capital by almost 61%, by over $1 million, while still moving forward. The breakdown of the $646,161, $284,550 would be funded from capital stabilization. That's per the town's financial policy. So anything that's under $50,000, we generally try to pay for straight out per policy. That's a separate article. And then $361,661 to be borrowed. And I put in your packet, and I'm going really fast in the interest of time, in your packet, and we can explain this at the financial forum March 25th in more detail, but the estimated residential tax impact for the general borrow for year one would be about $11.43. So we'll get into that analysis more as we move forward. And then underneath enterprise fund capital is what drives, is funded by the respective rates, and on March 17th we'll have a robust discussion on the recommendations there. And the rate review committee also did a very good job, which we'll get into detail that night, in mitigating rate increases and trying to really tighten that as well. Not that it's been well done previous years as well. Next. So again, just to show, last year's total capital plan was over $7 million. This year it's at $3.4 million. We reduced about $4 million, or a 54% reduction in spending from the capital plan, while still moving forward with our capital. And I thank all of the town departments and the committee that really made this happen. I think it's something to be proud of as we move in that direction. In terms of next steps on capital, on April 7th, the select board will be approving the warrant. There will be 4 specific articles related to capital. The first one is that for the general fund items from capital stabilization for $284,500, and list all of the items. Departments will also be prepared with presentations on the actual requests. The second article is the general fund borrow of $361,661. There'll be another article, as I mentioned, authorizing the $100,000 to be transferred from previous completed projects for the annual road paving. And then an article authorizing the $425,000 to be used from PFAS litigation funds for the media replacement. And then lastly, as the board is aware, each enterprise fund has an article on the town meeting warrant that includes the total funding, which includes the capital. The Finance Committee is also going to be meeting to review the warrant and make their financial recommendations in advance of April 7th. I don't have the exact date yet from them. And then the voters will vote on April 27th at 6 p.m. Next.
6 or
7. Yeah.
7. We'll fix that. Lastly.
Wouldn't mind going an hour earlier.
7, thank
Some of
you,
us want to go
Janet.
to bed early.
So, just to recap. So draft 2, official draft 2, we will have to the Select Board and FinCom on March 17th. That'll be the whole package. We continue to work on refining the omnibus budget. The next thing I already mentioned, we're working with the schools and Shirley on that piece, March 17th. March 17th will also be the public hearing. March 25th at 6 p.m. will be the public budget forum here with the Select Board and the FinCom. Will present draft 2 in detail, and all the departments will be here to answer any questions and take any input from the public. And then the warrant closes April 3rd, Select Board scheduled April 7th, and then April 27th, I have it correct here at 7 p.m. So we're in the final stretch, as they say.
He does it on purpose to make sure we're paying attention. Good job, Janet.
So are there any questions? I know it's real quick in the interest of time, but we will post this presentation to the website, and I will get it to everyone. Next, real quick, in your packet, so now, as is usually the case, you have a memo. The warrant for the annual town meeting is under development. In the interest of time, as of right now, there are 29 proposed articles. The deadline is April 3rd at noon for warrant articles. That's also the deadline for citizens' petitions to the town clerk. As you can see in the memo, a lot of the articles are the standard articles that we have every annual town meeting. I just point out the PFAS water litigation, which we talked about, the reauthorization of the prior year borrows for the road paving. And then you heard tonight from the building commissioner and the economic development director, subject to the planning board's review, a zoning bylaw amendment regarding signs. And then you can see there are a couple of community preservation projects, the Ayer Affordable Housing Trust and the Sandy Pond School HVAC project, which this board wrote a letter for. So as of right now, it's looking like to be a pretty standard warrant. We will keep you updated as that is developed. If there are no questions, the next item 4 you have in your packet. As the board is aware, we enter into grant agreements with the various projects through CPC. There is a grant agreement in your packet for the project with the Air Housing Authority for the 2 generators that was approved at the last fall 2025 town meeting. The grant agreement was provided by the chair of the CPC, has been reviewed by town council, and is recommended that the board vote to approve for signature by the chair.
Questions?
No questions. I make a motion that the board approve the CPC grant agreement with the Air Housing Authority as presented.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
And then, last but not least, in your packet, there's a 1-day beer and wine license request for St. Mary's Parish for March 14th, 2026, which I believe is the St. Patrick's Day dinner.
Corned beef and cabbage.
So that would be Saturday, March 14th, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. at St. Mary's Church Hall.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the request for a one-day liquor license for the St. Mary's Church Hall on Saturday, March 14th.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Congratulations.
Tickets are $15, I got them.
Can't have St. Patty's Day without some alcohol, right?
So, Madam Chair, that concludes my report. If there aren't any questions from the board, I thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, I'll print it. Yeah.
It'll be a,
The grant agreement, I'll print it.
okay, yeah,
The clean copy.
yeah. All right. Okay, next up would be new business select board member questions. Anything? Okay, so since we weren't on camera before, I'll just tell you that I had made an announcement that on March 10th at 10 a.m. on 12 Newton Street here in Ayer, which is right behind Town Hall, is the home dedication ceremony for the Habitat for Humanity. Welcome home, and that will be posted on the Facebook for everybody's here. Okay? All right. So next up is the approval of meeting minutes from February 17th. I didn't see anything.
I didn't have any changes.
No comments.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the meeting minutes from February 17th, 2026 as presented.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, chair says aye. Okay, and right before that, I want to thank everybody for bearing with us with our technical difficulties tonight. You wanted to say something.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the board move into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exemption 2, non-union personnel ratification of building commissioner personnel service contract. Exemption number 2, non-union personnel ratification of town clerk personnel service contract. Exemption number 3 for union personnel, ratification of town hall clerical union contract, and the board not to return to open session. And we'll adjourn from executive session.
Seconded.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Sean?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I, the chair says aye. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
We're in
Thank you.
executive session.